So how do you evaluate a mountain of research and narrow it down to something more reasonable? Well, first thing you got to do is read the sources with your own goals in mind. That is, you need to focus on the information that will directly help or hurt your own essay's argument. Okay? So think about what your sources are going to do to emphasize your point or to make your point sound a little bit more concise. Think of the focus of your questions. In the early research, you're looking for overviews, you're looking for summaries that might give you some information that would be useful. Okay? It'll help you get a handle on the subject. When you're going further along with the research, you're going to be analyzing how others are utilizing information, looking for some practical uses for the information, and you're going to be keeping your mind open to ideas. Okay? What kind of uses can you find for this information? Maybe in addition to what you had originally planned for it. Also need to read the sources in a rhetorical manner. Evaluate them based on questioning their source. Okay? Everything has to be approached from the viewpoint of the skeptic. You need to be looking at it in terms of why are they saying this? What is believable about this? What can I do to make this more believable? What can I do to help its credibility? Or can I help its credibility? So, as far as critical rhetorical reading goes, there's a few things you have to ask about in terms of your sources. First off, who's the author? Okay? Look for their credentials, their affiliations, and their educational backgrounds. So any organizations they may be a member of, what kind of degrees they have, kind of educational background, where did they go to school, what kind of things did they go to school for? Okay. Typically, in a periodical, you're looking for those credentials at the end of an article. They'll usually tell you if they've got a guest writer for that particular article. They'll give you their credentials, to give you what they've done in the past. And you can also run a Google search for that author. And you also look for other works by the same author to see if they remain consistent in terms of their knowledge base and what they continuously write about. Next, what's the source's genre? Determine the intended audience for that work. Who are they directly trying to talk to? Okay, is it to find this stuff? One thing you can look is the original publication information. Okay, look at where the article came from. Look at what periodical it's in. What type of audience that periodical is aimed for. Okay, if it's like a professional journal, you're looking at something that's written for professionals in the field. So yeah, it's going to be something that's going to be probably reliable because it's going to be evaluated by people who know what they're talking about. Also look for other articles for works from periodicals, anything else that's published by that periodical, anything else that's in the same issue with whatever source you're using. Okay, these are all good ways of determining what kind of viewpoint your author has. Author's purpose. How is the author attempting to shape the audience's views? Okay, so think about it this way. What kind of a piece of writing is it? Is it expressive? That is, is it like a story, poetry, something creative? Is it informational, strictly just like a report? Is it analytical, where they're trying to break something down and help you understand? Or is it persuasive, where they're trying to prove a point and get you to come on their side? Okay. Another thing to think of: who sponsors the site it came from? Who's going to be profiting? Okay. What kind of reputation does that site have? Okay. What is the publication's reputation? What kind of stuff are they known for? You may recall in the lecture I talked about how sometimes there can be a dysfunction between the publication's reputation and the quality of the source. Using the example of the analysis of 1984 that was published in Playboy, okay? But it was still a legitimate academic treatise, okay? Then you have the author's angle or bias. What data and information does the author cite? What kind of sources are they using? Are they using sources that are known to have a certain slant? Are they known to be biased? Are they known to be we think this way and everybody else can go hang? Okay, whatever like that. What are the author's underlying values, assumptions, or beliefs? Okay, What do they think? What do they know? What kind of a belief system does the author work under? And also, what is not included? What kind of stuff are they leaving out? What kind of information, what kind of facts are they leaving out? What type of stuff do you feel they need to explore a little more? Because that might also lead to certain biases they have. Then we have taking purposeful notes. So typically, how do you take notes? It's usually going to be, you think of note taking, usually think in terms of a lecture where you're writing down notes as it goes along, trying to get as many words as you can that the lecturer is giving you. Okay. When you're taking notes from research, generally a lot of students tend to do initial research by simply photocopying sources. That's a bad idea because that could lead to regurgitation rather than original ideas. Okay? We don't want to do that. So really, how should notes be taken? You want to take a 3-step process here. So really, you want to draw 3 columns on your page. Okay. Kind of like that. Okay. Imagine this is your whole page. All right. So first off is the bibliographical information. Forgive me, but trying to write with a mouse, my handwriting is going to be atrocious. Okay. The first column is the bibliographical information on the article. So the article name, the author name, the publication, the date, and the publisher of the article. Second is informational source notes on the source. So this is directly what you're pulling from the source. Just go and mark it as inf for informational. Okay. Where it came from, what other material was presented in the same issue, and quotes from the source. Okay. So this is where you're putting in what the source actually has to say, where you found the source, what kind of stuff is surrounding the source. Okay. Putting in quotes from the source that you think might be handy. Then the last column is the exploratory notes. Okay, let me put that up there. The EXP. Okay. So your exploratory notes are a self-evaluation of the value of the source. Questions the source raises, and ideas about how the source's information fits in with your thesis. Okay. So this 3-pronged approach is how you want to look at doing research for essays. Okay, look at bibliographical information because you need that for the works cited. The information that you're directly getting from the source goes in that center column. Then to the right side, that is going to be your own personal notes about how valuable that source is, whether it's useful, what kind of questions it raises, so on and so forth. All right, functions for sources. Okay, one of them is background information. It could be used for background information, presenting a perspective for the subject in greater context. Okay. The possibility is it might give you an alternate view. Okay. If it's counter to your thesis, then you want to summarize it and respond to it. Most likely, you want to try to refute it, try to prove it wrong. Briefly, that another source of support that you have for your viewpoint. Okay. You can use it as information or testimony. Use as evidence for your own thesis. Okay, present it as the facts that you need or the reasoning that you need to prove your thesis is correct. Also, if counter to your position or raises doubts about your thesis, this is a point where you'd want to try to refute it and try to turn it around and say, okay, you say this, but how do we know that you're right? Okay. And then we have another use for sources, theory or method to influence the approach. Now, I talked at length about this in the video lecture, but I talked about using books about mythological theory as part of the research for my master's thesis. Okay. Then we have some of the ways you have to evaluate sources. So one is on reliability. How accurate is the source against other sources reporting the same or similar facts? Okay. Is there a disconnect between the way your sources are using those facts? Are facts distorted to serve the author's own agenda? Are they ignoring something that could be important in the big picture? Are they doing a Texas sharpshooter and just looking at partial statistics instead of everything? Okay. Other thing to consider is the manipulation of facts acknowledged by the author. Okay. Are they letting you know how it's possible that this information could be manipulated? And then they give you an idea of maybe some ways that people have used the data in the wrong ways. Okay. Have the facts that they presented been checked by an independent source to confirm that they are correct? Okay. There was a very popular phrase that was popularized during the Reagan administration. Ronald Reagan's motto in terms of politics was trust but verify. Okay. It's basically the approach is, okay, I'm willing to trust that you're telling me the truth, but I'm going to have some independent fact checkers take a look at what you're saying and see if it corresponds with what's actually factual. Okay. How well edited is the source? Editing more of an issue with web-based sources than print sources. Editing in terms of blog posts and stuff like that could also ultimately lead to whether a source is trustworthy or not. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Next one's credibility. These are internal factors that are going to affect how reliable the source is, as opposed to external factors that come into play for reliability. Okay. So credibility comes down to how much do you trust the author. Okay. Are they an expert in the field? Do they know what they're talking about? Are they a trustworthy observer where they have firsthand knowledge because they were there and they experienced it? Okay. Could be something as simple as, do you like the way the author dresses? Okay. This is especially true if it's or an oral presentation or any kind of speech or anything like that. Is it a popular author or a not so popular author? Is the size of their audience going to influence whether you believe them more or not? Okay. Writers earn their credibility through moral courage, integrity, and consistency of principle. Okay. And we talked about this in terms of giving an example, the Woodward and Bernstein example from the 70s, the guys that broke open the Watergate scandal. Okay, they have definitely earned their credibility. Okay, they have angle of vision. Okay, this is their viewpoint. How does the author's underlying values, assumptions, or beliefs shape the argument as it is presented? What kind of biases are they bringing to the table? Okay, so one thing that's helpful here is to research the author. Find out what their politics are. Find out what their education is. Learn about a bit about their upbringing. What influences could that have? And their reputation. How do people regard them in the field? Okay. Also want to research the genre. Evaluate the audience that's being written for. Okay. Are they going to be an audience that really want the truth, or are they going to be an audience that just wants to be made to feel good? Look at the market niche. What corner of the market does the publication exist for? Well, who is the audience that they're trying to reach? And the political reputation of the publication. Okay, what kind of stuff have they done in the past? How is that going to color what they put in later? Also look at the political spectrum. What's really helpful when you're evaluating angle of vision is a base knowledge of the political spectrum and how authors, publishers, and websites fall in the chart. Okay, it's very useful for trying to evaluate your sources. Right now, I did supply you with a chart. Okay? That gives you examples of publications and where they all lie in the political spectrum. Okay? Keep in mind that obvious bias can lead to coloring of facts to suit their politics and may render those facts unusable. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to show you guys the most recent version of that chart. Okay, you may recall that in the slides we have a version of it that dates back to 2017, I believe. Let me make sure here. Yeah, this is from 2017. This is the 3.0 version. Okay, I have supplied you with the link in the class PowerPoints to the to the version 6.0 version of this chart. Let me go ahead and share that with you now because it's updated some of the outlets that are on it. Okay, so let me bring it up. There it is. All right, so here comes Media Bias Chart 6.0. Okay, so this is the Media Bias Chart that we have right as of this year. Okay, this was updated, I believe, July, I want to say. Okay, it is at least this year. Oh, excuse me, it's June. Okay, June of this year. Okay, so you can see some of the stuff that we have on here, most reliable to unreliable. I was going to mention that there's another outlet that I don't think is on here. At least I don't see it. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see it here. Okay. It's a generally runs a bit conservative, but it's in this down layer of accuracy. If you find anything on social media from the Epic Times, do not take it as news. Okay. The Epic Times is a China-based news outlet that's affiliated with a Chinese cult. Okay, and they have their own agenda. They actually had their own really mostly conservative agenda to the stuff that they produce. So if you see anything from Epic Times, I think it is. Epic is spelled EPOCH, by the way. See anything? Oh, there it is, right there. Epic Times. Terrorist puts it in the analysis or high variation in reliability area. They put it in the mixed reliability, and they do have it with a conservative. They put it skews right. Okay. But you can see we've got some other outlets on here. They've listed some of the more major local newspapers: Denver Post, Houston Chronicle. Let's see, there's Washington Post there. I just stuck with the Denver Post and Houston Chronicle there. Okay, we got some other ones here. Jacobin, Slate TV, or Slate rather, MSNBC is over here now. So I remember right, they weren't listed on the last one. Wonkette, that's a new one for this list. Alternet, Crooks and Liars, Bipartisan Report. Okay. Then over here, we still have InfoWars in the not quite utter crap category, but now we have the Acquirer and WorldTruth.tv in the utter crap category. Okay. Some of the other ones we got here: CNS News, Federalist, Breitbart is now located in this gray area between somewhat unreliable and mixed reliability. Okay. Daily Wire is now in the somewhat unreliable. So just when you have a chance, the link for this is available on. Link for this is available in the PowerPoint link on campus, on eCampus. All right, so if you have it available, you can actually take a look at that link on your own. Let me get back to the slideshow here. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna skip past the chart and go to the next slide. Degree of advocacy is the next category here. How obviously does the author take a stance on the source? Okay, so what kind of level of advocacy does the author have? What kind of skin do they have in the game? Is it an objective piece of writing versus persuasive? Okay, are they trying to convince you that some position is the right one to take, or are they just trying to act as an observer? Okay. Does the author have a membership in advocacy organizations? Okay, are they part of a think tank? Are they part of a non-for-profit that they have some kind of agenda? Maybe a super PAC or something like that. Any kind of memberships like that, you need to find out about the author. Also, does the author hold a grudge? Okay, do they basically have a personal vendetta? Weigh the evidence carefully when you're trying to determine how reliable an author is, because the interpretation of data can be called into question depending on that reliability. Keep in mind that neutrality is going to usually provide better resources. So more often than not, if you can stick with people who write for lawyer services or more prominent news outlets, not necessarily ones that have a definite bent to their coverage, anything that's got an obvious bias, but something that's going to be a little bit more neutral. Okay? Social media tends to be a minefield of opinions, so be cautious about using sources from sites like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. Okay? Now, when you hear about trolling in the modern day, it's usually trolls like to center on social media. So it's vital to be able to detect fake accounts that may not be trustworthy. If you saw the lecture, you know that we went through the test spotthetroll.org. We took it together. So I'm not going to try to take it again here, mainly because it's got my answers saved and I have to reset it again. But Spot the Troll is a good one to share with your friends so that they know what to look for and what is not a reliable source. Okay? How to know whether a social media site is reliable or not. All right. Next is evaluating web sources. Okay? Now, web sources can be wonderful in that they're convenient to find and easy to use, but they can also be a minefield of opinionated articles and urban myths. Okay? So more than anything, you want to try to avoid falling into the trap of finding stuff that's got a distinct bent to it or anything that is being spread around unchecked. Okay? Evaluate web sources similarly to how print sources are judged.
You broke up.
No.
For webmasters so that you can see who is offering what. Then you have objectivity. Is there a clear purpose to the site? Does it offer an explicit point of view? Are any author affiliations listed? Like we talked about having affiliations with super PACs or some kind of advocacy group. Okay. Is the audience clearly identified? Do we know for sure who the intended audience is for this work? Coverage. What topics are included on the site? How deep is the coverage of those topics? What kind of evidence do they present when they're covering those topics? Look at accuracy. Are they citing sources? Okay. Do they appear to have accurate facts? Do the facts match up with other sources you found? Are those facts and sources independently verifiable? And then one a little bit more pertinent with web sources is currency. Okay. When was the last site up? Okay. Are we dealing with out-of-date information, or are we dealing with something that's going to be a little bit more accurate? Okay. When was the article uploaded? Is the information current or relevant at the present? Or has the situation changed since then? Then we have to talk about domain identifiers, which would be helpful in determining credibility of web sources. Okay. In general, this is the way to look at these domain identifiers. Okay. These are the most common ones used for research. .com are typically commercial sites. They promote businesses or marketing services, and they typically have no identified authors. Most times the .coms are only reliable if you're researching the company that .com owns. However, keep in mind that most major newspapers are going to be .com websites. Okay, so if it's a newspaper.com, it's going to be reliable. Okay, all you need to do is just basically cite it as the newspaper or to cite the newspaper website. .org. There's either nonprofit organizations or advocacy groups. Some of them are neutral, but most of them have a distinct angle of vision. Okay. Most times, nonprofits that are using .orgs are going to be reliable. Keep in mind, though, that some .orgs websites are used by places with a definite agenda, sometimes more sinister than others. Okay. .edus are college and university sites. These are typically including institutional information as well as scholarly and advocacy links. Okay. If there's papers, like white papers produced by that college, there'll probably be a .edu site. These typically are reliable. Last one is the .gov.mil, which are government agencies or military units. There's a wide range of data and support for policy at these sites. They're also generally considered to be accurate. They're generally considered to be reliable. Okay. Evaluate your own for using the web source as well to help in the evaluation process of your sources. Okay. Does your purpose call for a more objective view, or is it looking for an advocate? Are you looking for somebody who's taking a side? Okay. Or do you need just somebody who's going to recite the facts to you so you can make your own judgment? All right. So that does it for the slides here. Let's take about 5 minutes here. Let you guys get any questions out there. And then we'll take a look at the discussion board for the last 3 weeks. So anybody has any questions, go ahead, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Are there no questions here? All right, so there's no questions. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the discussion board. Okay, as usual, we're doing a 3-week review of the most recent discussion board topics. So this week's going to be, this section around, we're going to be looking at weeks 7 through 9. Okay. As you can see, there are now a total of 9 discussion topics up there. Let's take a look at what the most recent 3 are. Again, there's really not a deadline in terms of when you have to get each one finished. It's just a matter of you should probably be keeping up with these because they're going to be fully graded at the end of the semester. And your grade is going to be determined on how many of these you have given a full and complete answer to. Full and complete answer being at least 3 paragraphs. Okay. So let's take a look at the topics that we have here. Let me just make sure that my microphone's still working. Yes, it is. Okay, and let's go ahead and take a look. So we start off with week 7. This is Banned Books Week. Okay. Discussion topic for this week. Okay. Annually, the American Library Association publicizes Banned Books Week. Time to examine what books have been challenged most often in libraries and school systems and learn about the dangers of public censorship. Part of the week involves releasing a list of the previous year's top 10 most challenged books. In past years, there's been a larger mix of topics that have caused controversy. Hang on a second. I'm going to change this. There we go. Why did this? Okay, there we go. In past years, there's been a larger mix of topics that have caused controversy, some of which were highly serious. For instance, the Little Bill books were pulled from libraries after the sexual assault conviction of author Bill Cosby, being utterly ridiculous. Webster's Dictionary was challenged for including swear words. The Bible was challenged for having a religious viewpoint. Who'd have thunk? But in recent years, the list has become even more controversial as the primary topics being censored have gelled into one single primary topic. There is a video put out by the ALA listing the 10 books for this year, which are as follows. I'm going to read the list and I'm going to play you the video. Okay? Once we get through the discussion topic itself. So the list, number 1, George by Alex Gino. Challenged, banned, restricted, and hidden to avoid controversy. Or LGBTQIA plus content and a transgender character. Because schools and libraries should not, quote, put books in a child's hands that requires discussion, end quote. For sexual references, and for conflicting with a religious viewpoint and, quote, traditional family structure, end quote. Number 2, Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Kuklin. Challenge for LGBTQ content, or, quote, its effect on any young people who would read it, end quote, for concerns that it was sexually explicit and biased. Number 3, A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo by Jill Twiss and E.G. Keller. Challenged and vandalized for LGBTQIA plus content and political viewpoints. Concern is, quote, designed to pollute the morals of its readers, end quote, and for not including a content warning. Number 4, Sex is a Funny Word by Corey Silverberg, illustrated by Fiona Smith. Challenged, banned, and relocated LGBTQIA plus content for discussing gender identity and sex education, and for concerns that the title and illustrations were, quote, inappropriate, end quote. Number 5, Prince and Knight by Daniel Hack and Stevie Lewis. Challenged and restricted for featuring a gay marriage and LGBTQIA plus content, for being, quote, a deliberate attempt to indoctrinate young children, end quote, with the potential to cause confusion, curiosity, and gender dysphoria, and for conflicting with a religious viewpoint. Number 6, I Am Jazz by Jessica Herthel, Jazz Jennings, and Sheila McNichols. Challenged and relocated for LGBTQIA plus content, for a transgender character, and for confronting a topic that is, quote, sensitive, controversial, and politically charged, end quote. Number 7, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Banned and challenged for profanity and for, quote, vulgarity and sexual overtones, end quote. Number 8, Drama by Raina Telgemeier. Challenged for LGBTQIA plus content and for concerns that goes against, quote, family values / morals, end quote. Number 9, Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Banned and forbidden from discussion for referring to magic and witchcraft, for containing actual curses and spells, and for characters that use, quote, nefarious means, end quote, to attain goals. Number 10, And Tango Makes 3 by Peter Parnell, Justin Richardson, and Henry Cole. Challenged or relocated for LGBTQIA plus content. Yeah, we can't tell a pattern here, can we? For your discussion this week, look for patterns to the books banned this year. What is your reaction to this list? If you have read any of the books on this list, do you understand the complaints leading to the challenges, or do you feel some oversensitive individuals are targeting the books unfairly? All right, so let's take a look at the ALA video. Okay, they're nice enough to produce a video for this every year. All right, fun, informative, and has Beppy beat. What do you think of that? All right. So there's been a lot of responses to this already. Many of you already responded to it. I do appreciate that. One thing I want to let you guys know, you want to keep this in mind. If you have responded to these already, keep your responses in the back of your mind because there's a possibility you might be able to use them for an essay coming up in about a couple weeks here. Okay, so keep that in mind. We're going to go to the next topic. Week 8, Columbus versus Indigenous Peoples. Okay, so your discussion topic on week 8. Today, the second Monday in October, is a federal holiday that creates a bit of controversy and dispute over who or what it should commemorate. The day was established in 1934 as Columbus Day to commemorate the journey of Christopher Columbus into the New World, thus leading to the exploration of the Western Hemisphere and its settling by European powers. This narrative, however, became more and more challenged as the 20th century progressed. In 1990, the state of South Dakota redesignated the day as Native American Day to commemorate the people who had originally been living in the Americas and whose various civilizations were disrupted for all time by the arrival of Europeans. 2 years later, as an act of protest, the city of Berkeley, California, home of the University of California, officially designated the day as Indigenous Peoples Day within city limits. The designation has become increasingly popular and spread further since then. Officially, there are 130 American cities and 16 states who have redesignated the day as Indigenous Peoples Day. Of the states, there are 3 differing approaches to recognizing the day. 7 states, Alaska, Hawaii, Maine, New Mexico, Oregon, South Dakota, and Vermont, have officially renamed it either Indigenous Peoples Day or Native American Day. 7 states, Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, North Carolina, Virginia, and Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia have given official proclamations of the day. And 2 states, Alabama and Oklahoma, celebrate a version of Indigenous Peoples Day under different names concurrently with Columbus Day. Regardless of how states have acted on the day, the federal government still designates it as Columbus Day on the official calendar. Meanwhile, our neighbors to the north celebrate entirely differently. The same day in Canada is designated as Thanksgiving. Your discussion this week, talk over how you feel about whether the day should be named after Columbus or Indigenous peoples. Does the name make a difference in how you spend the day? What opinions have you heard about Columbus versus Indigenous peoples being the celebrant of the day? So we have a few responses here already, and a lot of people responded to this one. I'm very happy with the participation here. Okay. And again, keep this in mind. You may want to come back to it later. Okay. I don't have a lot to add to this. There's really not much that has been said already. So let's go to this week's topic. What I just posted this week: social media and YouTube as springboard. This is kind of a short one because there's not a lot out there right now, but I do have some perspective on this that you might want to take a look at. Okay, so here's the discussion topic for this week. Ways to get rich and famous over time have evolved drastically from the start of the modern era in the 20th century. What used to seem out of reach to anyone but those with the best contacts has seemingly turned into something as easy to obtain as a social media account, as numerous influencers have crafted celebrity identities for themselves and use their platforms to become outrageously wealthy, seemingly for doing simple things on camera. While by far the best known and most successful of these celebrity stories belongs to singer Justin Bieber, others outside of music have been making their way into the mainstream culture, ranging from professional video gamers, such as, for instance, Tyler Ninja Blevins being the most famous pro gamer to date, signing exclusive deals to video platforms, to makeup artists. Jeffree Star used his YouTube and Instagram fame to launch his own cosmetics. The stunt performers, Jake and Logan Paul, more infamous now for their stunts than anything, still have built an empire off of YouTube and the now defunct Vine. Seemingly everyday individuals who turn on a camera and to do things they enjoy. Numerous Let's Play channels have gained their hosts' fame. Some have begun diversifying their productions, such as Sean Jacksepticeye McLaughlin's Coffee Company and Mark Markiplier Fishbox Apparel line. For your discussion this week, talk over some of these internet success stories or find others to examine. What elements do you feel make these creators popular? How do their presentations affect you as a consumer of media? Do you believe that other people could achieve similar results? And if so, what elements would contribute? So the sources I gave you for this topic are information about the specific ones I mentioned in the topic. Okay. For Ninja, there's a Forbes profile of him. For Jeffree Star, it's the homepage for his cosmetic company. Jake and Logan Paul, it's their Instagram accounts. For Jacksepticeye, it's the website for his coffee company, Top of the Morning Coffee. For Markiplier, it's for his apparel company, Cloak. Okay, and all of them have YouTube links. Now, I did not include any of the other fairly well-known ones in the in these particular realms. Okay, two of the bigger money makers that I left out of this. One is PewDiePie, but that's mainly because everybody knows PewDiePie. We don't need to give him any more attention. The other one that I did not mention was Ryan from Ryan's Toys and Games or something like that. I think that's the name of it. The little kid who made himself $65 million on YouTube. Okay, or some ridiculous amount like that before the age of 10. And it's actually led him to his own line of toys. So he's another one who's certified. This also is trying to get. I kind of was ham-fisted about phrasing this, but this is also talking about how some of these guys are trying to become celebrities more in a more mainstream sense. Okay, to give you just a brief for instance here of the ones that are mentioned here. The one that particularly I want to talk about is the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan Paul. They've kind of become more infamous than famous through their exploits making news. Okay. One that's a bit more positive though is Jacksepticeye, who is kind of starting to parlay his fame into more mainstream fame. He along with Ninja are set to both appear in a movie, actually, near the start of next year. They have cameos in the movie Free Guy, which is the Ryan Reynolds movie about a video game character who goes sentient. Now, Ninja actually appears in the movie. Jacksepticeye apparently does a voice for a character. Okay. The other thing I was just looking at last night was how they're affecting things outside of celebrity realms. You may have heard about this on Twitter. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez posted that she wanted to get on Twitch and play Among Us as a way of doing a get out the vote drive. Okay? And she asked for some professional gamers to join her, or some prominent YouTube gamers or Twitch gamers to join her. Among the people that did wind up joining her, one of her fellow congresswomen, Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Her daughter also wound up playing, and she also managed to get some of the more well-known gamers who have been posting Among Us content. One of which being Jacksepticeye was playing with her last night. Some of the other ones that if you've watched Among Us videos, you probably know these names: Disguised Toast, Corpse Husband, Dr. Lupo, Pokimane. Okay, quite a number of fairly well-known YouTubers and Twitch streamers came on last night and they were just having a ball playing Among Us with AOC. So. And they were not subtle about this. AOC specifically said it was basically an event that she was going to do to spread a get out the vote and vote early message to her followers. Okay, it made a lot of headlines. Got a lot of people's attention. Hopefully, it got the message across. Okay, so when you're answering this question, think about some of these ways that some of these guys are now going to become more famous. Okay, and they're starting to parlay into more mainstream fame. That isn't even getting into some of the music artists that have gotten their start on YouTube. A couple that come to mind: Tori Kelly, who was an American Idol contestant, wound up with a YouTube channel, got extremely famous, is now got a recording career and does acting as well. There's a number of other acts that have gotten really popular after YouTube fame. So keep all those in mind. Think about any of these types of people that that have gotten famous through social media, through YouTube, things like that. Okay, and when you're replying to this question. Okay. So let me open it up to one final round of questions, about 5 minutes here. Anybody has any questions about the discussion topics, about the blog project, anything like that, just go ahead and raise your hand. Let me see it, and I'll answer the question best I can. Is that Rambo in the back? Here's the funny part. That is not Rambo. If you take a look closely, in fact, I can just take it off the wall because it's only temporary. It's Weird Al Yankovic. This is a poster from his concert that he did on his tour in Dallas last year. If you've ever seen the movie UHF, there's a sequence in it where he does a parody of Rambo. So that's what this was supposed to be. He's carrying a machine gun. He's carrying a guitar. Yeah, I had premium tickets, so I got backstage. I had a backstage pass on that concert. Part of it was I got a poster. He was doing different designs for every stop of his tour. That was the design for Dallas. All right. Well, if there's no other questions here, I'm going to go ahead and close things up for the day. Everybody keep working on the blogs. We're going to have another lecture next week. By the way, some people have already noticed that there is content showing in the final exam link on eCampus. You might want to take a look at that material because it's going to become important later on in the semester. We're actually going to be going briefly over it next week during the video lecture. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and get it now, that'd be a good thing to do. All right, if no other questions here, I'll cut you guys loose, and we'll see you guys next week at the same time. See you then.